So I replayed through Undertale again recently, and at first I chose the name Frisk since that's their canon name. The game said it would be in hard mode, but I thought it was a joke since if you try to call yourself other characters, some text will appear and forgot. I went through the ruins like normal, and noticed that the paint around the switches wore away. I didn't think anything of it, since I thought I just got a special number on the fun value. Then I got into my first proper fight with a final Frogget. That's weird, because normally they're found in the core. At that point I looked it up, and realised the hard mode was actually legit. But I also found out it ends after the Toriel fight. So I did it, and I was greeted by that stupid dog who told me to leave. I stayed, and got my screenshot, and then Flowey predicted that I would have taken one. I was amazed. Even after watching so many Undertale videos across the 8 years it's been out, I've never seen this before. I then restarted my game and beat the pacifist route, but that's not the point. Playing the hard mode made me remember why I love this game, and with all the secrets and the huge fandom, maybe it's more than just a game. Whenever someone talks about how good Undertale is, they always reference how unique the characters are, the music is really good, or how the Mercy v Murder system is really interesting. Even I talked about this exact thing in this video. They usually say something along the lines of, they're an engaging and adorable aspect of the game, and then they congratulate Toby Fox on pretty much making all of them feel unique. But that's not the type of analysis I'm gonna do. I'm gonna talk about the leitmotifs present throughout the game, and I'll become the self-taught psychiatrist of the underground. Okay, let's just start from the beginning. Toriel saves you from Flowey and guides you throughout the ruins. You call her mum and you go to her house, your new home. She doesn't really elaborate on much, except if you leave, they, Asgore, will kill you, and then she fights you. Throughout the whole ruins, she feels like an overprotective but loving mother, and it can feel like Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, she pretty much kidnaps you after you fall into the underground, and Frisk is just a child. After a bit of research, I found the question, is adoption the psychological equivalent of kidnapping, by Judith Land. Her story is very interesting, so I'll leave a link to the article in the description. Obviously her story is much more severe and traumatic than any of Toriel's children, but it does reinforce Frisk's, your, Stockholm Syndrome. This is why after the fight where you accidentally kill or intentionally spare her, we feel some sort of remorse for her and loneliness, which could lead to a need for attention. In Snowdin, we're introduced to two new characters, Sans and Papyrus. To keep it brief, because the psychology of Undertale is not the title of this video. Because Papyrus never really had any parents, and did you know his connection to Gaster isn't even confirmed, and only having his brother for most of his life, it means that he feels like he needs to make up for the lack of attention by joining the Royal Guard and befriending you. And then for Sans, he displays some telltale signs of depression through oversleeping and feelings of hopelessness. He even uses gallows humor. All of this hidden behind a skeletal smile, a metaphorical mask to hide his true feelings. I'll end this therapy session with just these three monsters, three great examples of that even the most lovable characters have fatal flaws. Fleshing out every main character with such extensive characteristics makes you really attached to the game and can even make you, the player, feel intense emotions. Just like how Dark Souls can make people feel more inspired to overcome problems in their life, Undertale can prevent you from reaching your breaking point through the belief that everyone, maybe even Asriel, can be saved. First thing you hear after booting up the game is Once Upon a Time is probably the most prominent leitmotif in the game as it's present in all these tracks. If you paid attention to the music in this video, then you would notice that most of it is actually a few of these. Although most of these are pretty consistent as they revolve around a homely vibe or the royal family. A big contrast between two of these songs is the upbeat theme of Can You Really Call This a Hotel? I Didn't Receive a Minute on My Pillow or Anything, and the more serious and almost reminiscent It's Raining Somewhere Else. Despite both being in the same area, they both contrast each other. But why? Well, the name It's Raining Somewhere Else could represent the sadness Toriel and Asgore felt after losing both their children, but it could also reference the statue in Waterfall. When you place an umbrella over it, it plays a music box version of his theme, Asriel's theme. Therefore, it's not out of the question that this statue actually belongs in the fountain of the hotel because water triggers the music box to play. This is why the hotel theme is much more upbeat than the music played in the intro story of Kara falling and then being found by Asriel. It's remixed by Metaton, and the fountain has been vandalized with a statue of him. Now you may be thinking that since Once Upon a Time isn't found in his theme, this theory's been debunked. Well, do you know what does feature the leitmotif? Hopes and Dreams, Asriel Dreamer's boss theme. I read something when doing research for this video that the 3 distinct sections of Once Upon a Time represent the plotline of the Undertale. 1 is the beginning, 2 is the climax, and 3 is the end. The intro is a great example for this, as 1 is the war, 2 is Kara climbing up the mountain, and 3 is the aftermath showing Kara in the cavern. I'm going to base most of this section on this Reddit post, so I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to read it yourself. The 3 section is a repeating pattern despite it being the end of the song, so a way to interpret it is that it represents the pattern of the 8 humans who fell into the underground. It's a repeating cycle, and every time Toriel takes care of them, they come, they leave, they die. Which is why 2 is using home to hint at the tragedy which occurred here. And this is just what I think, but the lack of 3 may hint at you, the player, being the only one to save the monsters by breaking the barrier in the true pacifist route, or destroying the world in the no mercy route. The neutral route is an anomaly here, but who looks at Undertale and goes, yes, the neutral route seems real fun right now, I want to play a regular old RPG. But back to music. At first it seems out of place for Once Upon a Time to be present in Good Night, which, side note, isn't actually in the full game, but was meant to play at the end of the neutral route, and also songs like Reunited and Save the World. The latter 2 describe your journey to get there, and saving the person who tried to kill you in the beginning, and the former represents the irony of the true pacifist ending. All tracks tell you that you've come full circle, but it doesn't matter how you end the tale, you can always reset. I never had the privilege of playing Undertale as my first experience with the game. I was only a child, and so I watched Jacksepticeye play it. But in a way, I feel like I can remember it more vividly because I can always go back and rewatch those videos. I can't remember where I was and how I felt throughout the whole playthrough, obviously. But for the more impactful moments, like when he beat the game for the first time, when he killed Undyne, and when he finally beat Sans, those memories stuck with me. I remember lying in my parents' bed on my iPad smiling as he beat and forgave Azrael. I remember smiling as he finally beat Undyne the Undying. Then 3 years later, when I could finally play Undertale for the first time on the Switch, it was magical. It was magical visiting the areas where I watched countless YouTubers also go through. The relief and sadness I felt after finally beating Sans and watching him walk off screen to die was honestly a better sensation than beating any Soulsborne boss, better than Melania, Nameless King, and even Gehrman in Midborn. In the previous chapter, I talked about the repetition of Once Upon a Time being used in so many songs. The familiarity of the tune can even make you remember a song like It's Raining Somewhere Else. It only plays for a few minutes and then never again, but it feels like one of the most memorable songs for me. Everyone remembers different parts of the game more than others, but for me, after playing Undertale and experiencing the almost dinner date with Sans and learning that he's protecting you because of Toriel, and if it wasn't for her, then is much more memorable to me than the bomb defusal sequence with Metaton. Furthermore, some people will remember the date with Alphys, and I didn't forget about that, but would you rather date a cool dude or a weeb? Now, I'm gonna slow down a bit and ask, why is Undertale so memorable? Why can I remember this game more than any Telltale game? I mean, they have a great story, great characters, and pretty good music. So why can I remember Undertale more than Batman the Enemy Within, even though I played both recently? When I think of Undertale, all these moments pop into my head, but when I think about Enemy Within, I only really think of the ending. Joker asked Bruce if he ever considered them friends, and the choice between giving up Batman or Alfred. It's still a great game, but both Telltale Batmans weren't that memorable to me. You'd probably say it's because the characters in Undertale are so unique, but so are the Batman villains. I don't need to explain Joker, Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, or Bane to you. Then you might say Undertale's opening was better, almost dying, saved by a goat, leaving the ruins. But Batman Enemy Within starts with you saving a guy getting his finger sliced off and fighting the Riddler and his grunts. Then Lucius dies and you meet John again at the funeral. I only said that last part to build suspense. No one said the intro. Everyone went straight to the music if they didn't already guess it first. If you look up Batman the Enemy Within OST, you can't even find the full soundtrack, whereas for Undertale, it's the first result. Music helps us remember the certain events in which the same song was played. A really famous example is from a documentary called Alive Inside, a story of music and memory, in which there's a man called Henry who deals with dementia. His daughter Cheryl records him being a very musical man, however now he's inert and unresponsive. He's given an iPod playing his favourite song, and immediately he becomes animated and starts to sing. He remembers the lyrics and is reliving a memory, but how does it link to Undertale? Well, just by looking at Henry, positive emotions are being conveyed, just like how listening to Bone Trouser will make you smile at the thought of Papyrus. But when everyone loves Papyrus and by proxy Undertale, people will want more, and even if you still think Undertale is just a game, then look at what it's become. If If you're a normal person, then you probably don't know what an AU is, but at the same time, no normal person has watched it this far on an Undertale video. Although, just in case you really don't know, then I'll tell you. An AU is an alternate universe in which something is different from the original. Undertale probably has the most AUs out of any game ever, and do you remember when I said that some held on to the belief that everyone, maybe even Asriel, can be saved? Well, only 8 days after Undertale's release, Dreamer Reborn was uploaded to Tumblr. It's not really an AU, but it was the first time someone added something to Undertale, and it's impressive that it only took days for someone to crave new content enough that they created a comic series. But what actually was the first official Undertale AU? On the 4th of October 2015, someone called Vic the Underfeller had asked for any art requests about Undertale. Someone asked him to draw the cute goat mum, and he complied, but Vic made Toriel evil. Then 12 days later, all of the main characters were drawn evil. A day later, it was named Underfell. It didn't take long for Underfell to gain a huge following, and it's even more popular than some AAA games even now. Not long after, there was a new AU, Underswap. The first artwork of it is made by Popcorn Prince, depicting a more childish Sans, although the actual date isn't confirmed because the artists deactivated all their known social medias due to hate. Not because Underswap is bad, but because Undertale just became too popular. You see, with all the hype surrounding Undertale, some people were just sick of the game, and so they took their rather strong negative opinions to the internet. The amount of abuse Popcorn Prince received was unbearable, so they quit Underswap altogether. Although not for the reason you might think. They quit Underswap because they didn't like what their fans did with it. A major fan adaptation to the AU is Sans having the nickname Blueberry. Popcorn Prince didn't like that the fans had turned Sans into pretty much a child, and so they quit. Now, the two AUs I've talked about are the most popular, but it goes so much further. Horror Tale, Dust Tale, Mafia Tale, Underfresh, Underlust. What? Axe Tale, Swap Fell, Fell Swap. What? There are AUs of AUs. It's impossible to keep up with the Undertale fandom anymore, and even Toby Fox is a bit worried about what the fans have created. Now, the fanbase has died down a bit, but every time a new Deltarune chapter is out, they'll come back out of hibernation and make new fan art and AUs. Jesus, that was a long video for me. Before you leave, what's your favourite song in the soundtrack? Is it Spider Dance, or is it Wrong? Here's a sneak peek for the potential thumbnail of my next video, and if that interests you, then subscribe for a plate, and I won't bother you much since I don't upload frequently. See ya.